Hi! That
Hi.
was loud. Welcome to the John D. Mantis, where I'm just shouting at microphones. We are a tabletop role-playing game podcast set where we answer creative questions from curious gamers. I'm Jesse. With me is my co-host Maddie, and you're listening to a bonus episode. Say hi, Maddie.
Hello.
And right before we hit record, Maddie said something real controversial. And I was like, let's make this the bonus episode today.
Wow. I didn't know it was that controversial. I just said I don't want to do recaps anymore in my tabletop role playing games.
So there's the question. Should we skip recaps?
Yeah, let's give some context, right? So, we just had our first game after missing over a month.
The
Be-
dreaded holiday hiatus.
yeah. So I would say, what, 4 or 5 weeks
Yeah,
easy that we didn't play for?
yeah. And this is a weekly game.
This is a weekly game. That's right. And it just got to the situation where as soon as we hit December, it kind of just became apparent that, like, we weren't going to be able to get everybody on enough days, myself included, in order to really put together, a formidable schedule that we could all stick to and the holidays.
It happens in like every one of my game groups, like every December. That's why I
Yeah.
call it the dreaded holiday hiatus. It's a thing I've accepted. I've made my peace with it.
Yeah. And usually, what do we think of holiday breaks? Are they is that, like, are those game killers? Like, is that it? Like,
I've I've lost games during holiday breaks. Like we just came back and like, what were we doing? I've never lost a group, but I've definitely been like, I've lost interest in that thing I was running 6 weeks ago. Let's do something
right.
else.
Was that your concern so in our 5e D&D game, I have it on my bucket list before I die. I want to either run or play in a campaign that goes from level 1 to level 20 in Dungeons and Dragons. I've never done it. I've always wanted to. I'm running this game because I figure I'll never play in a game that goes from 1 to 20. I just don't think that'll happen. Statistically speaking, if you believe the internet, most Dungeons and Dragons games bottom out anywhere between level 7 and 10. And it is my goal to somehow go from level 1 to 20.
3 to 6 more levels before we can test that hypothesis.
Yeah. And Jesse, did you think that this game would not survive the holiday hiatus?
No, I thought it would. But the thing, okay, so the thing I was talking about before we go is I call this, I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this situation. You have a regular game, you miss a session or two because life happens or whatever. And when you all get back together to play again, it takes like 2.5 hours to start the goddamn play because everybody is like, oh, yeah, I like you. I want to talk about my real life. Fucking lame. And
Yeah.
I call it the wiggles. Like when you miss a session, the next session, everybody's going to have the wiggles, and you're going to be lucky to get an hour and a half to 2 hours of play in. Like if you have a 3 or 4 hour session, because everybody's going to be like, I'm excited to see you, which I admit is a lovely thing with people who you are your friends. But also, we came here for a reason, and that's to play some role playing games.
That's right. Yeah.
So I was expecting with our first session after the holiday hiatus that there would be some serious wiggles and we'd only get like 30 minutes of play.
Right.
And very early on, we did like 5 minutes of just general talk. And then Aaron, one of the players, said, like, so should we do a recap? And Maddie just goes, no recap. And I thought he was doing a bit, but he just launched into it. He was like, no recap. You're at the apothecary and with this guy, and you've just seen this happen, which was actually kind of a recap, but
Hmm.
it wasn't like a full on, here's everything that happened. Here's where you were. Here's what was just happening. Go with a leading question. And oh my God, he staved off the wiggles.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
It
You
was
were,
amazing. I've never seen it done before. And now I'm like, how can I recreate that?
I guess I did do a little bit of a recap, but I did it for an individual character because Kurt's character, Galen, was the only one that hadn't last session hadn't started interacting with other characters. So when I was getting my notes for the game ready, because when I start prepping for a game, I want to make sure that I try to get everybody in the spotlight somehow. And so I will generally go over notes that I have on how to do that for each person's character. And I realized I'm like, Galen isn't talking to anybody. He's
Hmm.
just kind of standing out in the street as two of his friends have gone into a building and are interacting with someone, and his other two friends are on their way to another place and didn't ask him to come along, and that's fine. But he's in this unique position to just kind of like watch all this happen. But I didn't really feel like it was just like a recap of like the game as a whole. It was just like a recap maybe of like the last like 2 or 3 minutes of what happened in the last game.
It was scene setting,
Yeah.
and and you said, I don't like, right before we started recording, you said, I don't like recaps. I don't think I'm going to do them anymore. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is content. Let's turn on the record. Like, yeah. Um, I think that we have to draw a distinction there
Okay.
between scene setting and what we're talking about or what you're talking about when you say, I don't like recaps. Because
Yeah.
traditionally in this game group, we have had a secretary who
Mm-hmm.
has done copious notes of
Yeah.
what has happened. And the recap is reading this volume, like even sometimes down to like how the combat went.
Yes. Yes. And I don't like it.
You don't like it.
Nothing against the individual secretaries themselves. I don't like being the secretary. I don't like the summary recap of the notes or rereading of the notes from the secretary. And I endeavor to make a game that's interesting enough that people will take their own notes or remember details. And I
Okay.
also want to create an open and safe space for people to be like, I don't remember this character. What was their name again? What was their whole deal? And then I'll give you a quick rundown. I'd rather do that than what we were doing before.
Yeah, I think like if you've I worry that that might create more work for the DM, but if you've got a good characterization and a name, like in accessible notes, like just be like, oh, yeah, his name is this, and you remember this distinctive feature about him. What was it? Like
Mm,
you can reinforce that NPC and like give them some more agency. And as far as notes taking, like I wrote down the whole poem. There was a
yeah.
poem in the game. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's that. I think maybe that's kind of because you had called this kind of a controversial topic. So, what's the controversy first and foremost? Let me start with that question. What's the controversy? Like a recap such a necessary thing that I'm saying something that's like, dare I say, provocative?
Yeah, well, no, I think, I mean, like I always do a recap in our game, and I've got some
Hmm.
decent note takers, and they're not like it's a brief little summary. Um, and I don't know, like I think it's controversial just because it's the way I've always done things at every table I've ever been at. Like it's
Yeah.
just, it's the status quo. And then you said that, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And now I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well, people kind of zone out on Zoom. I don't know. I haven't been in an in-person game in a long time, like a week-to-week in-person game in a long time. But in my opinion, when you play over Zoom, it's like you really have a tenuous connection with people's attention spans.
yes.
It's so easy to sort of pay attention. And I feel like, oh, at
Same when
least
you
over
podcast
Zoom.
over Zoom too, just to be.
Yeah. I feel like when you start a recap over Zoom, people start giving you less and less of their attention and start kind of zoning you out a little bit. Maybe they're, oh, I forgot to order that thing off of Amazon, or oh crap, my game is still open, or whoa, excuse me. Whew, sorry. Or, whatever, various websites. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's why I didn't want to do it anymore. And I don't want to do it in the foreseeable future or ever again.
I think my next session with my in-person group for the Dragonlance campaign is the Wednesday after we record this.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to do a modified version of it, not no recap, but I think I'm going to jump in because
Mhm.
what happened is you said no recaps, and then Galen, you see your friends going to the apothecary, you see someone out walk in a huff, you see blah blah blah, you see this other guy come by with this sword that Meta, one of the PCs, wasn't willing to pay the price for. How do you steal it for Meta? Which was the thing that like a leading question that you wanted to
Yeah.
happen in the story, and he picked it right up. So
Yes.
it was like 30 seconds of scene setting exposition that sort of reminded where we were without the full recap, and then a leading question. I think that when we get our recap, because oh my god, they're going to have the wiggles, and I don't. In an in-person group where like they all have professional lives, that a lot of my players work in the same industry but
Yeah.
don't work at the same place. Like there's gonna be, but when we jump in, I
Hmm.
think I'm gonna do a modified version that as the recap starts, I'm gonna be like, I need to interject for a second. Takar, how did you feel about that? Like, and
Uh-huh.
just
Okay.
ask those just like, leading questions. How did you feel about that? Why did that make you angry? What did that remind you of? Like, did this make you increase what you think the stakes are for what's going on?
Hmm. Okay. So leading questions in order to get people back into the frame of mind of this is my character, this is the game
Yeah.
that we're playing, because I don't know if I could get away with this with another group. And nothing against anybody else's groups or any other players, but like I wouldn't be doing this game with another group, you know. Uh
I don't, I just, I think you could get away. I don't think there's
you think
anything
so?
getting away with. I think it's just good practice as as a DM. Or game mother, I think, is becoming the show's preferred way to talk about people
Yes,
running games.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Um okay, I'm curious to hear more about that.
I mean, I just think like asking that question. I mean, okay, I'm so excited about this topic. I'm just like, with us, you can get away with the only thing getting away with is being like, no recaps. Um, but like then the actual practice of what you did, I think, is a practice I'm going to adopt in my own games and see how it
Yeah.
works. So we'll have to report back for the show.
Yeah. I mean, but think about what saying no recaps does. Because I had just said that, like, it's been my personal impression that when I've done a recap in past games, people stop paying attention or only pay half attention. But if I openly announce no recaps, I have everybody's attention
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
There's been a long break. There's bound to be stuff people don't remember. And I'm like, no recaps. And I have everybody's attention at that moment.
But how many times does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. Do you want me to do it every week?
I mean, if you just start saying it not in response to a question, it's going to get weird. Like,
Hmm. Well, okay. Well, what if I just don't recap? I don't even say no recaps. I'll be like, all right, we're starting. Galen, we're back with you. We started with you last time. We're going to start with you again.
yep.
You know, you are standing outside this building. You've all gathered there. There's a guard at the door. He says, you can't enter, sir. Go. Just set him up for what's happening. 30 seconds, no more, no less. You think that
Yeah,
would work?
I think it'll work.
Okay. All right. Death to the gaming recap.
I don't know how I'm going to pull this off with like I couldn't do a no recap
Mm-hmm.
because like the last time we played like weeks ago, they had just basically gotten like three quests right at the end of the session, which was poor timing on my part. But like I don't even remember what those quests are. I'm gonna have to look it up. I just know that they have quests. Who, fun fact for anyone out there who has read the original Dragonlance novels, they received from a Sylvanesti elf named Dalamar,
Hmm. Right on.
who will perhaps feature in the events of the novels that take place slightly later.
Oh, okay. Well, that goes kind of back to our IP episode,
I
but
mean, none
involving.
of my players have read those novels, and
That's right. Right.
so they do, I'm excited because I'm like, this is Raceland's apprentice.
So you've left them with three quests that got thrown in at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I threw a bunch of shit in at the end for our game that I'm running. And then it was like, all right, see you next week. And then that turned into over a month absence. You know,
Yeah, I think it's
what's
going to
the
be
difference?
I think it's going to be like when they get to that part of the notes, I'm going to be like, which one sounds most intriguing to you, Niston?
Mm-hmm. Force that player character to make a decision
Yep.
on what path to take next.
Yep.
I mean, there was information that got forgotten about for my game, and I didn't remember it until like our game was last night, as when we're recording this. And, today, as I'm, working and doing my stuff, I'm like, oh crap, that's right. There's that one thing that came up in this last session. And I completely forgot about it and I didn't execute it in our game back. And then I was like, oh, but what a great opportunity to bring it up at a slightly later date and then have people be like, oh, yeah, that thing. Okay. You know, I'm trying to be vague because Jesse plays in this game and I don't want to give it away. I know this isn't necessarily good audio.
You know I'm planted as like your helper. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was leaning into the like meta's the leader thing, trying to help out with that too. Like, yeah.
We'll grow him into that. Yeah.
And I think I did. I feel really proud. This is a side note about that session about it's like just being like, oh yeah, Seamus is an idiot. Like
He's a lovable idiot,
yeah,
though.
but he's dumb. Like he's taken one too many punches to the head during his monk training. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The AI image that you had had made for your character portrait did not scream class valedictorian to
No,
me.
no. But like all fantasy art, it just kind of looked like Henry Cavill. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
vaguely like Henry Cavill.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
So that's something the AI and I can agree on. Henry Cavill is a handsome man.
Yeah. I think the majority of all people agree with you on that one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I've gotten turned around on AI for role playing games for sure. So I'll definitely be using more of it. I used it in the game last night when Aaron's character, his wizard, decided to detect thoughts, and I was like, oh shit, what does this character think? He doesn't know he's reading the thoughts of a gnome. And I didn't want to do the typical like, hee hee, I'm tricking them. I can't believe they're falling for my illusion, because this gnome is casting an illusion and the party hasn't figured it out yet. So I just quickly brought up Chat GPT and was like, what are the inner thoughts of a gnome? And it gave me four really good options. And so when he was like, all right, here, I'm like, here's the surface thoughts that you detect. And I read off this thing about a mechanical bird and possibly getting some tea later and maybe, whipping up an enchantment. It was like, I'm like, AI is useful.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I guess I'm a convert. That's all it took.
Convenience. All it took was convenience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great tool for role
Yep.
playing games.
Yep. Useful tool. Not the end all be all. Yeah, still have to know how to use the tool. But
Yeah, well, there's a huge difference between that and Gemini. Let me tell you that because I've tried to use that one before.
which is Gemini the Google one?
That's the Google one. I'm like, this is just the internet. Like it's just searching. I already know how to do this.
I mean, like it's the problem I think with like all the AI models is because like so much has been search engine optimized of text created by humans that
Hmm.
like because that stuff draws people with Gemini just replaces the draw to that website and they're not making any money from that anymore. They're not gonna write that crap anymore, which means the AI is gonna have nothing to model its shit from. Like
Right.
there'll be
Yeah.
no content because the AI doesn't know anything. It's just like shuffling words together for like the most likely answer based on what it's seen before, you know? Like, so
Yep.
like way to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, internet.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that is a potential outcome for sure.
Cool. Well, you're not going to do recaps, and I'm going to try it, and we'll
Yeah.
come back on it.
What if it doesn't work anymore? What if it goes horribly wrong?
Then we learn and go back to doing it the way we did before. I mean,
I don't like it. I don't want to do that anymore.
you just learn from things. Then we'll come up with something else. If you, the audience, have a creative suggestion for what to do to replace recaps or a way to do a recap that is less burdensome, you can write us about it, and we'd love to hear it at johntmantis@gmail.com.
Yeah, or you can
johntmantis@gmail.com.
leave a comment wherever you found this. You can leave a comment.
Yes, you can leave comments on our YouTube site
Mhm.
now. So
You can also rate and review the show.
that helps.
Yes.
You'd be like, Jesse was talking really fast and made little sense. I'm like, yeah, 5 stars. Thanks.
Yeah, that's worth 5 stars. Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Well, that's it on recaps. We'll keep you posted.
Yeah, get out there and recap some shit or something.
Yeah. Keep playing those fucking role playing games.
Yep.